Hey guys, back here with another video. And last video I used this brush right here, the Kuretake Menso brush. I think that's what it's called. Awesome brush so far. Really liked how it turned out. Inked the outlines for this guy here. Looks decent, pretty good. And I started this guy here. He's kind of got like a toad looking skin texture, like a bumpy amphibian. And I feel like this brush is awesome for finer details compared to other brushes. Like so far, the details, like the way the lines can vary in width is really well, really well. It could go from thin to thick really quick, and from thick to thin also really quick. And awesome brush. So here I'm gonna finish inking this face in, and maybe share some tips and tricks along the way. So for inking finer details like this, it's always good to get the outline in first. Here I started on with some of the finer details, but that's because I was impatient, and I should be more patient when I draw. But always consider the kind of texture you have, so when you're laying down the lines, you kind of imply them with those lines. So here you got some of those lines. You see how you're able to get really thin lines with this brush? Really like it. Probably going to start inking more often with this brush whenever I have any kind of like bigger pieces, because the main reason I really like using brushes is because it saves you so much time. Like compared to pens, like if I was doing this, I would have to switch the pen every so often to get thicker lines and then thinner lines, thicker lines and then thinner lines. Like you want to be able to vary your line width whenever you want, and I feel like the brush is the best way to do that. Or if you're doing lines without, like, also the G pen, you could do that with the dip pens too. So I got the G pen here, this one. You could do a lot of line varying with this, but in my opinion, if you wanna, if you're gonna use ink wash or paint after it, sometimes I don't like doing the whole piece in that, because sometimes when you lay down a line with the G pen or a dip pen, it can leave a line that has ink drying on top of the paper rather than like laying flat and getting absorbed by the paper. And so what happens is if you pass it over with water, it can that clumpy piece of ink can spread and it could ruin your paints or the water washes, the ink washes you're putting down. So you got to be really careful when you use the G pen. But with brushes, it's like it leaves down like an even layer of ink if you do it right. It's easier to be careful with a brush. If you maintain the right level of patience while you ink with a brush, it it's easier. Sorry, I got distracted by a message. But overall, when you're inking, make sure you keep textures in mind, line weights, all that stuff. So he's supposed to have like some kind of a bullfrog type pouch underneath his chin. Really like this character. It looks really funny. There's some kind of alien species from another planet. But you see how you can get really thin lines with this? It's awesome. Like I don't have to keep switching the tools while I'm using this. You know the guy that does the Vagabond manga with the Miyamoto Musashi samurai guy? Yeah, I think he uses this kind of brush for the whole thing. And now I get why. Like you could do a lot with this, just without switching your tools so much. Like it's not that I'm lazy. I mean, I am, but it's that I don't like switching tools so much because it makes the art look inconsistent sometimes. You need to be so skillful when you use a lot of tools. Don't let it fool you. Like you think you're using a lot of tools because because of a lack of skill or something, but y- well, yeah. I mean, yeah. When you use a lot of tools, it doesn't make things easier. That's what I'm trying to say. It doesn't. It can if you're doing it correctly, but I feel like sometimes when you just use too much, you could get lost in all of that, you know, all that stuff. So just use one tool, man. Get real good with it, and you could do a lot. Like this is looking pretty well so far. Big frogman, the frog juggernaut. This got to be the strangest thing um ever designed. Well, not really, but it's a pretty strange thing though. I like it. All right, gotta fix up the nose, so I'll save that for later. All right, but yeah, hope you learned something from this video. Also one last tip because I think I might have shared this on another video, but so when you're landing a line, right? When you're drawing lines, I see a lot of people when they draw, man. They do this like whenever they're trying to start. Let's say you got a line over here, like this line. Just pretend that's drawn, right? Instead of just drawing it, they'll land the brush on the paper and then do the line, right? You see how you'll end up with a weird looking line? What I advise is you pretend your brush is kind of like an airplane. It's like flying in. That's the line is the runway, and then the brush lands on the line, draws it, and then leaves. You'll get a more uniform line. And I'll show it on the drawing too. So let me get some ink on this brush. You got the brush up here. Let's get a line. That's the line we want to ink in, right? Brush lands on the paper, and then it comes off. You get a line. You see? If you just put the line on the paper and then you take it off, you end up with these feathering lines. That's got its own time and place. But if you're trying to make clean lines, don't just land the brush on the paper right away. Unless you land it with an angle and then you just like make that line like this. You see? See that? You could draw out the side of the brush. Never just land with the brush on the paper. That's just a recipe for disaster. You see that? If you just do that, it's not really a disaster. But if you don't intend to make a line with that kind of quality, don't land with the brush straight on the paper. But yeah, so far awesome brush, and thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, comment, whatever you want, questions, all that good stuff. Later. Bye bye.